Okay, so picture this. You're in the year 1983, and in a single year, you have a record-breaking 104 books published.
Wow.
That's Dame Barbara Cartland for you.
Oh, wow.
The queen, the undisputed queen of romance. But, today we're going to go beyond those pink covers
Right.
and those dashing heroes to uncover the woman behind this empire.
I think what's fascinating here is, you see all those novels, fairy tale endings, happily ever after.
Right.
But her life was really full of, twists and turns. It rivaled any of her plots.
Yeah, it's true. From a family tragedy that forced her to relocate as a child to a scandalous divorce that rocked British high society. Her story is anything but predictable.
And those experiences really shaped her writing, I think. So we have to start at the beginning, and there's a family secret
Okay.
that really had a profound impact on Barbara's life.
Okay, let's unpack this family secret. So we've talked about her grandfather and financial ruin, but it sounds like there's more to the story.
Yeah. Yes. So her grandfather, James Cartland, he was a successful businessman, but when a bank suddenly demanded repayment of a large loan, he was caught off guard.
Right.
And the shame of bankruptcy was just too much for him to bear.
Wow.
And he tragically took his own life.
That is a heartbreaking start to her story. So how did this impact young Barbara?
Imagine, losing your family home, having to sell your belongings, and relocating to a new town. It was a dramatic shift for a young girl.
Yeah.
And it was her mother, Polly, who really became the anchor during this turbulent time.
Polly sounds like a remarkable woman.
She was fiercely independent, determined, and she instilled those qualities in Barbara and her siblings. She understood the importance of self-sufficiency, especially for women in those times.
And she also recognized and nurtured Barbara's love of storytelling?
Absolutely. In fact, Barbara later found a short story that she had written at just 5 years old among her mother's possessions.
Wow.
So, it's amazing to think that her passion for writing was evident even at such a young age.
It's like she was destined to become a storyteller.
Right.
But her early life wasn't all about writing, was it?
Definitely.
There were those interesting stories about her first encounters with romance.
So picture this. Barbara's on a holiday, just a young woman, and she receives her first marriage proposal from a much older colonel, complete with a handlebar mustache.
That doesn't sound very romantic.
Right.
What was her reaction?
She was absolutely horrified.
Oh.
And what makes it even funnier is that she had just learned about the mechanics of childbirth from her mother, a subject apparently not covered in girls' schools back then.
Right. It's a funny anecdote, but it also reveals a lot about the social norms of the time, doesn't it?
It does.
It's incredible to think that something so fundamental to life was considered taboo.
It certainly highlights the societal constraints placed on women, especially when it came to knowledge about their own bodies.
Yeah, speaking of societal constraints, there's also that dramatic story about the rejected suitor who threatened suicide.
Oh, yes, that's a real page-turner.
Okay.
So this young man, Dick Usher, was completely smitten with Barbara, and when she turned down his marriage proposal, he threatened to shoot himself with a revolver.
Wow, that's intense. It sounds like something straight out of one of her novels.
Doesn't it? Luckily, Barbara managed to talk him down, but it shows just how passionate and dramatic these early romantic encounters could be.
So after all this excitement, Barbara eventually moves to London. What was it like for a young woman navigating the social scene in the Roaring '20s?
Imagine, a world of glamorous dances, gossip columns filled with the latest scandals, and believe it or not, clandestine encounters in Hyde Park taxis.
Clandestine encounters in taxis. Tell me more.
Well, it was considered improper for unmarried couples to dine alone. So after a night of dancing, they'd often end up in taxis, parked discreetly by the green coffee stand at Hyde Park Corner.
It sounds quite scandalous for the time. Was Barbara a participant in these late-night rendezvous?
Oh, she was.
Okay.
But for her, the thrill was in the anticipation.
Right.
Would he propose? Would he try to steal a kiss? These encounters became like real-life chapters in a romance novel, and they definitely influenced her writing later on.
It's as though she was gathering material for her future novels, experiencing those romantic highs and lows firsthand.
And let's not forget that she was secretly writing gossip columns for various magazines and newspapers.
Oh, so while she was navigating the social scene, she was also observing and reporting on it.
Exactly. She was like a real-life Lady Whistledown.
Oh, wow.
Dishing the dirt on the elite while keeping her own identity hidden.
It makes you wonder what juicy tidbits she might have revealed.
I know it's a shame those columns remained anonymous because they would offer a fascinating glimpse into her early observations on love, society, and scandal.
It seems like she was quite a skilled observer of human behavior, a trait that undoubtedly served her well as a writer.
Absolutely. And speaking of observation, she eventually met her first husband, Alexander George McCorquodale, amidst the whirl of London society.
And this is where the contrast between her fictional heroes and real-life experiences really comes into play, right?
Yes, because McCorquodale was a Scottish army officer,
Yeah.
far from the dashing dukes and mysterious lords
Right.
that populated her novels.
It's an interesting juxtaposition. Did her writing become an outlet for her romantic ideals, a way to escape the realities of her marriage?
That's a question worth exploring as we delve deeper into her life, and let's not forget, her marriage to McCorquodale was just the beginning of a series of unexpected turns that shaped both her life and her writing. Her marriage to McCorquodale in 1927 was a far cry from the fairy tale romances that she penned.
Right.
It lasted only 5 years and ended in a very public and scandalous divorce.
5 years is quite a departure from the happily ever afters she wrote about.
Right.
So what led to the breakdown of the marriage?
Well, it seems that Barbara discovered love letters from another woman among her husband's belongings, and that was the final straw.
Oh, wow.
She went straight to his family demanding a divorce.
It must have taken a lot of courage to take such a bold step in those days,
Mhm.
especially considering the social stigma surrounding divorce.
Absolutely. Divorce was incredibly taboo in British high society, and Barbara faced significant backlash. Friends shunned her, and she was even barred from participating in a charity ball because of her tarnished reputation.
It's incredible how society could be so unforgiving towards a woman who was the one wronged in the situation.
It speaks volumes about the double standards of the time. Interestingly, though, there are rumors never confirmed that Barbara herself may have had relationships outside of her marriage.
Oh, that adds another layer of intrigue to the story. Do we know anything about these alleged affairs?
The details are sketchy, mostly whispered anecdotes that surfaced long after her death. Some suggest she had dalliances with men who fit her ideal hero mold, even a duke and a prince.
It makes you wonder if she was seeking those qualities she wrote about so passionately in her own life.
Perhaps she was drawn to those larger-than-life figures seeking a connection that was missing in her marriage. It's all speculation, of course, but it adds a fascinating dimension to her story.
It certainly does. But despite this tumultuous period, she did eventually find love again, didn't she?
She did, and this is where it gets almost too perfect for a romance novelist. She married Hugh McCorquodale, her ex-husband's cousin.
It sounds like a plot twist from one of her own novels, finding love in such an unexpected place.
Exactly, and they had a long and happy marriage, 27 years, and 2 sons together. So despite the rocky start, she ultimately found the lasting love that she championed in her writing.
That's heartwarming to hear. But let's rewind a bit to the period before her second marriage. You mentioned that Barbara wasn't content with just being a wife and a mother. She had other passions and pursuits that went far beyond the world of romance novels.
That's right. Barbara was a woman of action driven by a strong sense of social responsibility. When her daughter Rain became seriously ill, she became a vocal advocate for public health improvements.
That's surprising. It's not the image that typically comes to mind when you think of the Queen of Romance.
I know it shows a different side to her, a depth that's often overlooked, and her activism didn't stop there. She became fascinated by aviation and even worked on a groundbreaking project to deliver the first airmail via glider across England.
A glider that's quite adventurous. It seems like she had a thirst for pushing boundaries both in her personal life and in her choice of pursuits.
Absolutely. And the glider was even named after her, the Barbara Cartland. Her work on this project actually contributed to advancements in airmail delivery, especially during the war. She even received an American Aviation Award later in her life for her contributions.
It's remarkable how she balanced these diverse interests with her writing career and family life.
It is, and when World War II broke out, she and her children relocated to Canada for a period. But she soon returned to England, feeling a strong urge to contribute to the war effort.
What did she do during the war? Was she involved in any relief work?
She did more than just relief work. She became a welfare officer, focusing on improving the lives of women in her community. She helped service women acquire better clothing materials, assisted pregnant women, and those navigating the complexities of divorce during wartime. She was a pillar of support for women facing difficult circumstances.
It's amazing how she stepped up to meet the challenges of the time, drawing on her own experiences to help others.
It's a testament to her resilience and empathy, and throughout this turbulent period, she never stopped writing. Her novels offered a form of escapism for readers seeking solace amidst the harsh realities of war.
It's interesting how she was able to create these worlds of love and happiness while surrounded by so much upheaval.
Perhaps it was a way for her to process the difficulties of the time, to reaffirm her belief in the power of love and hope. And Speaking of hope, the post-war period brought a significant turning point in her writing career. It was in 1948 that she published Hazard of Hearts, her first historical romance novel.
This was the book that really launched her into superstardom,
This
wasn't it?
is.
So what inspired her to make this shift to historical romance?
It all started with a request from a women's magazine. They challenged her to write a historical romance, and she embraced the challenge wholeheartedly, it seems like. Researching the past, delving into those bygone eras, ignited a new passion in her, and she never looked back.
So we've talked about, Barbara Cartland's pretty unconventional path to becoming the queen of romance.
Right.
But her life was also intertwined with royalty in ways you might not expect.
It's true. Remember Barbara's daughter, Rain?
Yeah.
Well, in 1976, she married Earl Spencer, which made Barbara the stepmother-in-law to a young lady, Diana Spencer.
Wait, so the queen of romance was practically family with Princess Diana?
Yes.
What a fascinating connection.
It really is, and Diana was apparently a fan of Barbara's novels even before the family connection. There's even a photo of her as a teenager, completely engrossed in one of Barbara's books.
It makes you wonder if those fairy tale stories influenced Diana's own views on love and romance.
That's a compelling thought. We know that Diana sought escape in romantic novels, and even once remarked to Barbara that her whirlwind romance with Prince Charles felt like one of your books.
That's incredible. It
Yeah.
really highlights the power of these stories to shape our perceptions of love, even for someone like Diana, who was seemingly living out her own fairy tale.
Sadly, we know that fairy tale didn't have the happy ending Barbara always wrote about, but it speaks to the enduring human desire for love and the way those desires can be both fueled and complicated by the stories we consume.
And speaking of complicated relationships, Barbara also had a close connection with Lord Mountbatten of Burma,
Oh, right.
Prince Philip's uncle.
That's right. They had a strong friendship, and Mountbatten even assisted Barbara with one of her novels, Love at the Helm. He shared his naval expertise, adding authenticity to the story.
So even the queen of romance sometimes needed a little help from a real-life lord. It seems like her life constantly blurred the lines between fiction and reality.
It certainly did, but Barbara wasn't afraid to voice her opinions even when they sparked controversy. Her famous clash with Jackie Collins on live television is a prime example.
Oh, that's the one where she called Collins' books evil, right?
That's the one. It was a televised debate about erotica versus romance.
Right.
And Barbara, being a staunch defender of purity in her novels, went head-to-head with Collins, who championed a more explicit portrayal of sexuality.
What a clash of ideologies. I can only imagine how that conversation unfolded.
It was quite a spectacle. Barbara argued that explicit content was harmful and could lead to perversion. Collins, on the other hand, defended the portrayal of sexuality as natural and empowering.
It's fascinating how those contrasting views reflect the evolving societal attitudes towards sex and romance. Barbara's traditional values were increasingly at odds with the changing times.
That's a great point. She became even more outspoken in her later years, campaigning for religious morality and denouncing things like homosexuality. She saw herself as a guardian of morality, which unsurprisingly generated considerable backlash.
It's a reminder that even beloved figures can hold views that are now considered outdated or offensive. It's important to acknowledge this complexity rather than shying away from it.
Absolutely. It's all part of understanding the full picture of a person's life and legacy.
So how did Barbara Cartland's remarkable story come to an end?
She continued writing at an astonishing pace, publishing an average of 2 books every month, right up until her later years. Her process involved dictating to secretaries, no sneezing or coughing allowed, while she relaxed on a couch with her dog.
That's quite a visual. It sounds like a well-oiled romance factory.
It was in the 1990s she broke the record for the most books written by a British author, and in 1991 she finally received the recognition she had long sought. She was made a dame for her contributions to literature and her charitable work.
A fitting honor for the queen of romance. And she lived a long and fulfilling life, didn't she?
She did. She passed away peacefully at the age of 98 in the year 2000. Barbara believed in reincarnation and wasn't afraid of death. She felt she had lived a full life, rich with love and joy, and she believed that essence wouldn't simply vanish.
That's a beautiful sentiment and a perfect reflection of her romantic spirit.
So looking back on her life, what can we learn from this deep dive into Barbara Cartland's world?
She's a study in contrast, wouldn't you say? A woman who both challenged and upheld traditional values, who experienced real-life heartbreak, yet dedicated her career to crafting tales of enduring love.
Precisely. And her enduring popularity, even with changing social tides, reveals something profound about our own fascination with love stories. They offer us escape, hope, and a glimpse into a world where love conquers all.
We might not all agree with her personal views, but her impact on the romance genre is undeniable.
So here's a final thought for you to consider. In a world that's constantly evolving, what is it about those classic romance tropes? The innocent heroine, the dashing hero, the promise of a happily ever after that continue to captivate us.
It's a question worth pondering, and we encourage you to delve deeper into Barbara Cartland's world.
Hmm.
Read one of her novels, explore her biography, or even listen to that album of love songs she recorded. You won't be disappointed. And don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more explorations into unexpected corners of history and culture.